I've got a notes page. I don't know if anyone knows this, but I write down, sometimes it changes, the absolute bare minimum of what I need. And it's not much. When I first moved to Sydney, I lived in my car for a bit. I didn't have a job, so it's not really much what I need. I need to be warm at night. I need to be comfortable during the day. There's a couple other things in there. I need to be hydrated enough. And I need at least an hour a day where I can sit down and just think about how much I enjoy being alive and being healthy and having 2 legs and 2 arms and stuff like that. So as long as I've got that and I've got my notes, sometimes I check it, I'm okay. Yeah. I've realized I don't need a lot. And as long as I remind myself that I don't need as much as I think I need, because especially if we're talking about Sydney, very racy, everyone's driving around in Porsches and Maseratis and stuff, you don't actually need that much. So for me, it takes me out of that, this race for something that I don't actually want in the first place. So yeah, I think that's important.
Do you find it hard to navigate the challenge of making changes in your mental health journey due to many aspects feeling intangible? Keeping things simple and practical can be a powerful way to take action and build a stronger mindset. And the discipline of exercise is one of the best methods to achieve this. In this episode, we're going to look into how practical skills like boxing can foster resilience in navigating mental health challenges. Welcome to Move Your Mind, where we uncover why you are holding yourself back from getting the life you want and what to do about it. With the help from high-achieving guests and experts in behavioural science, personal development, and the health and wellness space. Join us if you're ready to move out of your own way toward your ideal self. I'm your host, Nick Brax, and I've been working in the health and wellness space for the last 15 years, helping people find direction and gain the courage to take control of their life. My mission is simple: to help you learn everything that I wish I knew, so you can become your ideal self. Lacking guidance, I spent the majority of my youth feeling lost and disempowered, which led to depression, anxiety, low self-esteem, and substance abuse. Looking back, I didn't have the vocabulary to communicate what I was experiencing. And as a man, I didn't resonate with the emotional language used in traditional therapy. I didn't need to talk about my feelings. I needed tangible solutions to guide me toward building a life I was proud of. If you can relate, then this podcast is for you. In this episode, my guest Michael Cordner will share his story of overcoming drug addiction to competing in boxing while offering practical strategies for building resilience against mental health. If you're ready to take action and build a stronger mindset, then keep listening. Michael, so great to meet you, mate. We were just joking before that we're both from Melbourne, but you're in Thailand right now. I'm in New York, but we're using technology to have this conversation.
Yeah, crazy cool, eh? Yeah, we were just saying about all the co-working spaces. It must be quite common, people like jumping all around the world and just working off their computers. Pretty cool when you think about it, eh?
Just so much easier. Technology's made the world a lot smaller, a lot more, everything's more accessible. So it is.
Yeah. Fair.
That's great. So I might just jump into it. Can you just give me a bit of an overview on what Land the Jab is and how you came to be doing it?
Yeah, man. So Land the Jab is a youth mental health program that I started in 2021. I started it in Melbourne at our home base. And basically, all it is, it's really simple. We just go into schools and do small groups, like 12 to 24 kids between 13 and 18. And we teach them boxing. And through boxing, we draw parallels to resilience and teach them some strategies to overcome adversity in real life and just kind of trying to find a different way to look at dealing with adversity.
That's great. Yeah, I think, something tangible like that's so important because there's so much awareness out there now, but I think that's really the area that we're lacking in. Where can, especially for men, what can you actually do on a practical level to learn some of these skills? And I think resilience is probably something a lot of people are, not developing as much now because, we live in a society where we're behind screens all the time and we're sort of, we can make excuses for not really working on certain areas. So I think, that's a super important thing you're doing.
Yeah, I think the resilience thing's interesting. I almost wouldn't say, and I'm not 100% concrete on this, I'm still kind of working through it with that, but I wouldn't say the resilience is less.
Right.
Um, but it's different. I'm not that much older. I'm only 23, so I'm not actually that much older than some of these kids who are like 15, not even 10 years older. So
Mm.
generation gap isn't that big. Um, but I think the resilience is different. These kids are a lot more resilient. They're a lot more closer to their own values. They hold a lot of things a lot closer to them. A little bit more difficult to. Their thoughts are a little bit less malleable, if you will.
Yeah.
Um, but then on the other hand, um, general things like words hurt these kids a lot more, I think. And kind of stereotypes and stuff like that actually do cut through a little bit more. So I'm not really sure. I think it's just different. I don't
Interesting.
know if it's less or more, but I'm still working with that one, to be fair. I don't really
Yeah.
know.
It's a work in
Interesting.
progress, but I mean that's in this area we're always learning, and I think that's the thing. It's just exploring it and trying to learn and educate ourselves and other people as much as possible. So, what
Yeah,
what got
exactly.
you into? Do you have a background in sport and boxing? Is that like what got you into it, into
Yeah,
this
so
path?
yeah, yeah. I've been boxing for um, a long time now, almost 14 years. I've
Oh
been
wow,
fighting for about 10 years. Um, and that's why I started it. Like, obviously, everyone's had their own version of struggles, obviously me included. I'm sure you have too. And everyone like finds their own way to like kind of charge through it. Because I've been boxing for so long, the easiest way for me to think about not just mental health, everything is through fighting. So, um, how do you win a fight? You punch. Which punches do you use? You start jabbing. So what I really started to do was, with all these problems I was facing, I just cut it all right back to, all right, what was it? What would be the first thing I would do in the ring? As corny as that sounds, that's just the truth of what I was thinking. And it was always jab.
yeah,
Start, make a start. If you can jab, you can get some sort of feints off, and you can see them moving, and then you can start to land some other shots, move, get some space, and you can build off of that. But if you don't jab, if you don't have that first initial step, it's impossible to build off anything. So that's where I kind of crafted this land the jab mental health framework thing. But yeah, that's where it comes from. It does come from sport.
yeah, it's great. And how much has sport and boxing helped you? You're touching on it then with your own mental health and well-being. Has that been a real go-to sort of thing for you, having that as a backbone?
Yeah, it has. It's also been interesting for me because I started so young.
Yeah.
Um, I've been through a lot of different stages in my life, um, and the constant has been sport. It hasn't necessarily been, sport off the rails, sport off the rails. It's sport's been in the background the whole time. So there's definitely been times where it's, especially competitive sport, especially a sport like fighting. It's very masculine. It's very, very competitive. There's been heaps of challenges within that as well. So, it is something I've gone back to, but it's also a constant in my life that I've just learnt to take with me through whatever I've going through. But this is a constant. The constant that does get me out of whatever I need to get out of or through is this land the jab idea, and that's why I'm so about teaching it to other people and to younger people.
Yeah, it's great. And what sort of age groups do you have going through the program?
We usually do year nines and tens.
Yeah.
I find that's like the crux point. If you speak to any teacher, any wellbeing coordinator, it's always the year nines. I know a lot of schools, even especially a lot of the private schools in Melbourne and Sydney, they separate the year nines. They take the year nines off the campus and
Right.
take them somewhere else, which I get. I I get it, especially like the year nine boys. It's like all the testosterone comes in at a hilt at that age.
Yeah.
Um, but we usually do that age because it's also the crux. That's when everything happens. You kind of start transitioning from a school kid to an adult in school, and it's coming to that pointy end where you got to start making your own decisions. So that's why
Yeah.
we usually pick year nines.
Yeah, great. And what have been some of the sort of core issues you've seen that the teachers and these kids have been wanting to improve on, that kids have been having? What are there some sort of core things that come up in most of the schools you work in?
Yeah, I think so. Western Sydney mostly. I think they've got a hope issue. And I've touched on this before, I think, but I think there's a loss of hope in some of those suburbs out Western Sydney, especially since social media. Every time a lot of these kids open their phone, they're from the areas that are getting trashed on, so to
Mm.
speak. And they're from the dangerous areas, from the crime ridden areas. So obviously, because they want to feel part of their society, they conform to that. And we're kind of seeing this strange, blindly walking into a life that they don't want, and they know they don't want, but they're being told that that's what they're going to be. So they kind of, it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Um, that's quite sad to see, but that's
Mm.
also
Mm.
quite common. Um, I would say that's the thing I'm struggling with the most at the moment, and everyone out there is there's like a self-perpetuating stereotype. I think that just needs to be broken down a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you feel like men, I guess these adolescent men, uh, need outlets like this from the environment they're growing up in, or does it vary between schools? Does it seem like that's something in, this day and age that's really important?
I think specifically boxing, I wouldn't say it varies between schools. It varies between groups of kids.
Right.
Um, Specifically, boxing works really well for your really difficult kids. Your traditionally kind of violent outburst sometimes. Um, kids that won't do anything you say. For them, this boxing program works really well because it's an instant, like physical explosion. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's really easy to get some of these kids to you hold your hand up and they smack it. It's very easy to get them to do that. Much harder to get them to sit down in class and do geography or whatever they're supposed to be doing. So it works really well for those kids. For the other kids, obviously, there's like always a more introverted group, usually into like gaming or sometimes music and stuff like that. Um, I think that's a little bit different. And there's even a few options to do a couple of different types of programs, like music programs. But uh,
Right.
I think that's where the difference is some of those introverted kids. This combat thing doesn't translate quite as well, but definitely for those kids who are really quite naughty, quite violent, they've got a lot of pent up energy. Perfect, man. It cuts right through to them.
Yeah, because they wouldn't have anywhere else to put that energy. They've got all this, and the schooling system isn't always equipped to deal with those kind of kids. So it's so important that they have that outlet.
Exactly. And just quickly, nor should it be. I've been thinking about this
Exactly.
quite a bit lately. I don't think that. I used to really think that teachers should, like not even that long ago, but teachers should be doing more. They've
Mm.
got these kids for 6 hours a day. Why there's still issues? They should be. But teachers don't go to university for psychology, and they don't go to learn about social issues and stuff like that. They just kind of go and learn. If they're a maths teacher, they go and learn maths, and then they're supposed to teach maths and be a counselor and be a social worker and a mediator and a carer and all these things at once. I think if we compartmentalize that a little bit, it can be much more efficient. And if when the kids rock up to school, their teacher's their teacher, that's who they get maths from, and there's someone else who they can, confide in to be vulnerable or whatever they need to be. I think that might work better. And I think that's why outsourcing some of these programs is going to start being much bigger. So yeah,
Yeah.
just interesting that one because I used to have a much different opinion on it.
It's a really good point, and even within, they teachers should be paid more really for how much their
Yeah,
responsibility they're taking on, and like you're saying, they're not trained in psychology, but they're having to do as much as they can in mentoring these kids and looking after so many different areas that are out of their direct uh, you know area that they specialize in. So it's a really good point and shows
yeah,
that we need
100%.
yeah, need more people like you doing these outside, bringing these programs into schools. That's really a big solution for it.
Yeah, I think so. I think I think it just separates it easier, like I was saying, and you're right. Teachers aren't getting paid enough to deal with even some of the stuff I see out southwestern Sydney. They're not getting paid enough to deal with that. Like psychologists are getting paid much more by the hour, and for these
Yeah.
teachers to be a psychologist and all those other things we mentioned all at the same time, and have that burden of caring for so many kids at once, I just don't think that's going to be sustainable. And clearly, it's not. Right? Schools aren't the worst in Australia, but clearly, it's not exactly where we should be.
Yeah.
So I think maybe that's one of those things we could change up a little bit, compartmentalize it maybe.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And where do you envision this going? What are your goals in the next, 5 years, with 5, 10 years, with where you want to take it?
Well, basically, I'd love to get a hub, like a land the jab hub, whatever that looks like, in each state. Um, I just, I really like doing it. So I know this might sound kind of selfish. This is just the honest truth. I'm doing it because I like it. So
Hmm.
obviously, yeah, it helps the kids, and I like that aspect of it. But in a selfish way, it helps me as well. So as long as I'm just still doing it and I'm still on the ground doing it, I'd love to get a couple of schools in Sydney, maybe get a few people to run that, and then move up to Brisbane, get a couple of schools in Brisbane, just a couple. It doesn't need to be huge. It doesn't need to be this worldwide thing.
Yeah.
And I'd love to go to Northern Territory, Central Australia. We'd love to do prisons and rehabs. It might be a little bit down the track, but I think drug rehab facilities would be really, really cool to jump into. But keep it small, keep it consistent, and just make sure we're listening to everyone who feels like they need to be heard.
Yeah, I love that. And it shows you're doing it for the right reason as well, that you like you're saying, you really want to be on the ground doing it yourself, and you enjoy what you're doing. And it's that grassroots sort of movement that normally does make the big difference. So I think it's really important. Uh,
I
and
hope
you,
so.
so are you still competing yourself in boxing?
I am, yeah. So I've
Yeah.
had 21 fights, mostly amateur. I had
Oh
one
well.
professional fight, 2021. Moving up to Sydney, obviously, that created a bit of a gap. But I've got a gym now I'm training at, a small gym in Bondi Junction, Moala Boxing Academy, with some killers down there. So I'll definitely get a fight soon out of there as well. We're just looking for the right one.
Amazing. And on a personal level, as an athlete, how do you manage the ups and downs? How do you stay motivated? How do you keep your mind focused? And I guess, you're talking about resilience. How do you stay resilient?
So I've got a notes page, actually.
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone knows this, but I've got a notes page that I write down. Sometimes it changes the absolute bare minimum of what I need, um, and it's not much. When I first moved to Sydney, I lived in my car for a bit. I didn't have a job, so it's not really much what I need. I need to be warm at night. I need to be comfortable during the day. There's a couple other things in there. I need to be hydrated enough. And I need at least an hour a day where I can sit down and just think about how much I enjoy being alive and being healthy and having two legs and two arms and stuff like that. So as long as I've got that and I've got my notes, sometimes I check it. Um, I'm okay. I'm okay.
Yeah.
I've realized I don't need a lot, and as long as I remind myself that I don't need as much as I think I need, because especially if we're talking about Sydney, very racy. Everyone's driving around in Porsches and Maseratis and stuff. You don't actually need that much. So for me, it takes me out of that, this race for something that I don't actually want in the first place. So yeah, I think that's important.
I love that, mate. I might steal that one off you. I think that's
Well, yeah,
great. Or just simplifying it. I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? And I mean, I'm in New York, and the same thing. You sort of see people that are just chasing money, and people of all levels
fair.
of, yeah. It's
Mm,
just it's never ending. But at the end of the day, like you're saying, it doesn't matter. Like the things that are important are pretty simple, and
yeah,
family,
you're right.
friends. Are you healthy? Are you getting your core needs met? But it is a good way to look at it, because we have all of these first world problems, and you meet people that are super successful and have made a lot of money, and they're often miserable because it's not enough for them. They're wanting more, and to just be grateful for what we
Yeah,
have
man.
and be present. It's so important.
That almost scares me more. Hey, um, working your whole, because I train a lot of people in northern Sydney. Um, fairly high profile clients. They got quite a lot of money. They've got all the nice cars and stuff. They're just people. They're the same as you and me, guaranteed, and everyone. But I think it looks like to me it comes to a head. You work your whole life chasing something you think you want, and then you get there and you feel the same, and that almost scares me more. You know what I mean?
Totally.
Maybe I'm just overthinking it, but I think sacrificing so much, because these people they sacrifice a lot and they work really hard, and then to get to a point where you realize, oh man, maybe all I wanted was a smaller, simpler life. Almost scares me a bit more. So I'll tell you a quick story. I was telling my mate the other day. I walk to work every day, very close, and my neighbour has a Corvette, a red Corvette, two-door red Corvette. It's very cool. It's super loud, super low. He parks it next to his AMG. And first time I saw it, it must have been new when he bought it. I was like, that's sick. I was like, I need that. Like the next couple of days, I'm listening to music, listening to all my Eminem, thinking, I'm going to take over the world, man. Every time I walk back, I'm like, yo, I'm manifesting this. I'm going to have a Corvette in my driveway. After about a week, I kept walking back and I was like, man, that must be really annoying to drive around here. It's really low and it's actually quite long. And I wonder how you can see out of it. And about a week after that, about 2 weeks, I was like, I don't want one of those, man. It's too loud in the morning. Doesn't look like there's much room in it. He drives it real careful every time he backs out the driveway. I was much happier with my Ford, man, I think. So I think that perspective is really important to see. And so sometimes just putting yourself in that place where, imagine you do have all that stuff, you'll feel the same after a little bit anyway. So I just thought that was interesting. Thought I'd drop that in there.
And thank you for sharing. Well, you've got a lot of wisdom for 23. Is that what you said you are? 23?
Yeah,
That's amazing. You got that kind of, so level-headed for how young you are. It's so important, but yeah, can't agree more with what you're saying. And none of these things, they're all fleeting. None of them are going to make us happy. They're all going to be just maybe a moment. It's like taking a drug, really. What else is it going to do? And I totally agree with you. I'm way more scared of going down that path where you do something you don't like doing to hopefully get something that's meant to make you happy. Even if it did make you happy, it's still not worth it because time is finite and you don't want to waste a day. You want to do what you love now and enjoy life. And most of the things, if you break it down, that most of us enjoy doing, we don't really need that much for. So it's, yeah, such a
100%,
good
bro.
point.
Yeah, hit the nail on the head with that one. Yeah, no, you're right. I think that's important.
I love it. Well, thank you for sharing all of this, mate. We finish every episode with 5 closing questions. So you just, whatever comes to mind for these. The first one is, what's your best childhood memory that comes to mind?
Best childhood memory. Interesting. This one just came up
Bit of a
as
random
soon
one.
as you said that. Yeah, no, that is
Yeah.
random. But I remember when I don't know how old I was, maybe 4 or 5. One of my cousins, he had dirt bikes. I jumped on the back of his dirt bike out near 12 Apostles in Vic, and he took me for a spin on the dirt bike. And I remember thinking I was like Superman on the back of a dirt bike going 50 k's, mate.
Love
That
it.
was the
Love it.
best one, hands down. Thanks for reminding me, actually.
There you go. It's funny what comes to mind, isn't it, when you think of it?
Yeah, for real.
What do you think's currently the biggest burden on mental health in society?
Put this as a closing question. I think I think we've got an over medication problem, and we don't have enough support services. I think we're happy to throw serotonin reuptake inhibitors at a lot more problems than we're happy to sit down and talk about for an hour. Um, and I know that there's financial incentives and whatever. I'm not, talking about this whole conspiracy theory. I'm just saying that,
Yeah.
it's when you go to a doctor and if you say I think I have ADHD, I'm feeling depressed, I've got a lot of anxiety. Even when I was 15 years old, I went to a doctor on my own and said that I was having anxiety and couldn't eat properly and stuff. And I got a 50 box of diazepam, which just sent me down a road I didn't need to go down. So I think that's, for me especially, that's definitely one that I think needs to be stomped out sooner rather than later. If you're talking about big mental health burdens or barriers, for sure, over medication.
That's a really good point because it is scary, and I've been experienced the same thing where medication can be important in certain circumstances, but they need to have a more rigid process of how they decide and how they test people for that. But they shouldn't be trigger happy just handing it out. So really,
Yeah, I think it's getting better. To be fair, I think it is getting
yeah,
better, but it's still not where it should be. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. What would you say is your personal definition of happiness? Hey guys, if you're enjoying this podcast, please click the subscribe button, leave a like or comment, share with your friends, and follow me on Instagram at NickBrax. I really appreciate your ongoing support.
Personal definition of happiness is being content with the time that's passing, I would say.
That's great. Very, very well summed up there. What are you most afraid of?
Interesting. Losing my freedom, honestly. Um, Losing my autonomy, losing my ability to say whatever I want, to be whoever I want. Um, Having to throw away my values, whatever that looks like. Um, I'm not sure, but that really scares me a lot, and it always has for some reason. Not really sure why, but having to throw away my values or having to pretend to be something I'm not or someone I'm not, or losing my freedom is a huge one for me.
Yeah, that's a massive one. Well, final one. What are you most proud of?
I think I'm most proud of feeling when I feel content. I do feel very proud of myself. There was a long time I spent a lot of time in like drug rehab facilities, as an addict, and you don't get a lot of those feelings very often. And it's surprising how good they feel when you haven't had them for a long time. So yeah, I think that's a huge one for me. Just feeling content and happy with whatever I'm doing. I'm in a hotel in southern Thailand right now. It's like 8 a.m. here. I'm about to go off and see some islands and stuff. So, man, that's huge. I was in a little, basically a padded room not that long ago. Alone with my thoughts, withdrawing from alprazolam. So, pretty happy, man.
Well, and yeah, I mean that's amazing, mate. Well, congratulations on coming through. That's huge. And how long was that process, and how did you go down that path? If you don't mind me asking.
Yeah. Well, I guess it started when I was young. When I was like 15, I went to the doctor to get a mental health plan, and he gave me these things called diazepam, which obviously I know now is Valium. At the time, I didn't know that there was a link. I was listening to rap songs. I knew that Valium was a drug. Didn't know what it was. I definitely didn't know what diazepam was. And I took it and fixed a lot of the problems I had, obviously. But that stuff doesn't last long. So eventually it was another 50 bucks, then another 50 bucks. And then the doctor said, okay, that's enough. Can't have any more. And I thought, sweet, I'll just chuck them out. Nope. You can't really cold turkey off them. It's quite dangerous. So turned to, becoming my own chemist, so to speak, getting my own stuff illegally. And it moved on to alprazolam, bromozolam, some stronger ones. And I came to a point where my friends and my family just kind of realized this isn't gonna, this is a death jail or institution type of pathway. So I went to a rehab facility, did a detox, did a addictive behaviors program in Geelong, and it was really tough, man. It was really, really tough, especially I was 19, I think, 19 or 20. Um, and yeah, being on your own in there with a bunch of other 40, 38-year-old alcoholics, mainly alcoholics and opioids, mainly what the other patients were, um, and kind of looking at, oh, this is where this life goes. Just turmoil the whole time, just pain, turmoil, and the other people it affects. That was the first time in my life I really realized how powerful my actions can be towards other people. So it was really difficult. But like I was saying, through this idea of landing the jab, it's all I can think about is fighting in there. So it actually got me through it. And I always struggle. Still, I'm struggling. Right? I'm dealing with it. I wouldn't say I crave every now and then, but I'd still get feelings of, wow, like I'm freaking out. It'd be really easy for me to have a benzodiazepine and just chill out. Basically like the door's right there. But I also like challenges a little bit. So I like beating myself a little bit in that aspect. So it's a constant struggle, man. It's going to be constant, but I'm content with it and I'm ready for it. But yeah, it was definitely tough. It was definitely tough.
I can imagine, mate. Well, I mean, I'm sure you'd be a massive inspiration to all of these kids you're working with, and being able to, have a story like that and overcome something like that, I think is what a lot of people need to hear. You would be probably helping more people than you even know talking about it. So I think it's a really powerful thing. And yeah, no, it really is though, because a lot of people are suffering in silence and they need to hear, they need to get that hope. And they don't often hear these stories. They don't often think there is hope. So I think it's, amazing you got through it and you're able to, share the story and help others.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that.
I really appreciate you making the time to come on, mate. And final thing, where can our listeners go if they want to learn about Land the Jab?
So we've got our website, www.landthejab.com. I made it myself. Yes, you're welcome. And we've got the Instagram, which is Land the Jab. So either one of those, the Instagram's got some cool little quotes on it that I've been putting up, and the website's got like a full program outline, and you can contact us through there and stuff like that. So yeah, the website or Instagram.
Amazing. Well, we'll have that in the show notes, so make sure to check it out. And yeah, so nice to meet you, mate. I really, really appreciate you coming on.
Awesome. Thank you, Nick. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Michael Cordner, for joining me today and offering your insights. And thank you for listening. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the episode and any suggestions for topics you'd like to hear about. Feel free to leave a comment or send me a DM. Your feedback is always appreciated. Please don't forget to click the subscribe button, leave a like or comment, share with your friends, and follow me on Instagram. It really makes a difference. Thank you so much.